Hi, it's Anne-Marie from Charmed Life Therapy again. Ugh. I'm glad I made a video last night, because honest to God, it gets me every time. It's when I'm going to bed and I must stop checking my emails last thing at night, because there were about 8 emails through from court listener and I'm like, what the... and today it's like, can I be asked talking about this today? And I thought, will it get any better if I leave it for a couple of days and then try and talk about it? And I thought, no, I don't think so. Although there will be a nice letter, I guess, that follows up from either Kevin Fritz or whoever gets to respond to this one. But it's interesting, isn't it? Obviously, a lot has happened since yesterday. And again, it would be Blake Lively's team cluttering up the docket. So now we have motions for sanctions against Bryan Freedman, most specifically. So let's kind of try and backtrack a little bit. So the judge has basically said, when it comes down to the subpoena that went out to Lina Freriedman, as usual when it comes to Blake, it's granted in part and dismissed in part, but for the most part, it's positive for Bryan Freedman, because half of that request were things that they didn't have a problem with giving because there was nothing to give, and when it comes to the other things, the judge is saying no, it's like privilege or it's attorney-client work product or whatever it is. So I don't think there's anything problematic remaining there. So there seemed to have been some kind of collaborative request to extend the deadline for motions to compel and extend the deadlines for giving people the chance to respond to that. But that was for documents like produced on or before the 25th of July. So there was a request that they all seemed to agree on to move it from August 1st to August 4th, and then the deadline for response to be August 6th, I guess, motion to compel further. But now we've got, sorry if I'm mixing that up, but I'm trying to get my head around it all. But now we've got this massive omnibus brief from Blake. Omnibus brief. A compelling, like a litany of things from everybody. And as somebody pointed out in my comments, getting very specific about what you means. That you isn't just about, say, Justin Baldoni or just Wayfarer. It's about everybody that's ever had contact with you, everybody that's acted on your behalf, or you've acted on their behalf, and it's like every kind of communication going. Perez Hilton's done a really good job breaking it down. And I know people have a problem with Perez, but kind of why I appreciate it's been a little bit is that there's a bit more levity to it. There's a bit, somehow he manages to give it a little bit of joy, and I think his outrage, whether it's real outrage or faux outrage, I'm not sure at times, but it kind of just lifts it a bit, I think, and makes it seem less heavy. So that's why I will sometimes refer to Perez, because sometimes the people that cover this, I think especially where it's women and they've been through SH or SA and these kinds of things, obviously they're coming at it from an emotional perspective and a perspective of, real-time experience with these things. So it can get a bit heavy, I think, when you're following it all. So that's why I do find Perez valuable in that sense, because at least there's a bit of joy to it. I was watching it today and it was breaking down this omnibus brief and running through it all, and at one point he went, Jesus Christ, and it's like, and that's how it is. It's like this thing, it's like the other day I found myself referring to it as like the Garden of Gethsemane, and it's like the whole thing is getting kind of biblical, isn't it, in its nature and its scope, and it kind of popped into my head that, like I've mentioned before, I do a bit of a course in miracles, and I try and keep up with the lessons and things. And one of the things, I keep saying propounding because it's like crept into my vocabulary now, and I've no idea whether I'm using it in the right terminology. I kind of want to say propounding all the time now. I don't know why. What's the other one that I'll be using now? Oh, spoliage. I thought it was spoilage, but it's spoliage that Blake's accused him of today. Or accuse them of. So that's basically now they're all pirates and they're robbing and plundering and destroying evidence. She's accused them of spoliage today. But yeah, I've lost my train of thought now with talking about propounding. But yeah, it's just the breadth and scope of it all now. How big it is becoming and how kind of crazy now at this point. And it's like many people have pointed out, this omnibus brief and this sanctions, request for sanctions or motion for sanctions, these are things that have come up on the fly. They've been constructing these for a long, long time. And one of the things that occurred to me is, was this all constructed well in advance? Because they were very worried about that deposition and how it would go. And the thing is, her team has already said flat out, you're only getting one crack at her. Now, I don't know that they can just blanket say that. I mean, if it was like 1 7-hour deposition, then I think it would be very hard to have addressed all that needed to be addressed. But it's like, is part of all of this not just about making sure or trying to inflict harm on Bryan Freedman's credibility, but is it also about, so later down the line, if there's another request for a further deposition, they can say Ms. Lively does not feel safe being deposed by this side. It is not a safe environment for her to be in as a victim of SH and retaliation and defamation and the rest of it. I wondered if part of it was a little bit of that as well. I did have a little chuckle when they were asking over the footage. You know, one of the complaints in what Wayfarer's provided in these requests for productions along the way is the manner in which they provided the film footage, and that it's in this kind of out of sync order, because films aren't filmed in order, are they? Especially not when there's been strikes and that in the middle of them, and that the audio was missing, was what they said at first. Now, when that first came out, my first thought was, well, probably when it's a movie, the audio and the actual footage is separate, which turned out to be so. And that was just like the first thing that cropped into my mind. Well, when you're probably talking about a movie, it's probably separate anyway. And the thing is, so they're complaining that it's not being given in a manner in which they can find it really easy to just go through. But the thing is, I guess Wayfarer's thing is, well, she sat in on this thing. She knows what it is. She knows what the flow was of it all. Surely she doesn't want it just as the film. What is she expecting here? Because you either just want to watch the film again, in which case you can just get it on Amazon Prime or whatever your platform is, or you get it in this form where it's like basically all the raw footage that surely you're the one that says you need to pick it apart to identify all these instances. Can you not chew? She's here taking advantage of me, chewing my branded pens. Etienne, she's already chewed a cigarette lighter this morning. Can you come with me while I do this little bit of what I'm pretending to call work, which isn't really work? But yeah, so surely that's what she wanted, the raw footage. Surely that's where she wants to pick apart every time Justin Baldoni's kind of given her the side eye when she wasn't looking, or placed a finger on her when she wasn't looking that she didn't feel, or whatever it is. Surely that's what she wanted, and she's complaining about it. She's also complaining about the fact. I mean, she was so offended by that video on Jamie Heath's phone of his wife. Was it a water birth? She was so offended by that at the time, wasn't she? So freaked out, and now she's kind of offended that it's not been provided to her as part of the request for production, so she's going after that as well. So she wants Jamie Heath's porno, what she called a porno video. She wants that now as part of the proofs. So to me, and I think to most people looking at this, I think all of this is smacking a bit of desperation. Obviously, it's not nice. It's not nice, the level of attack and the level of detail and the level of hysterical nature of it, I think. And I think we're kind of, what I got from it when I was reading kind of the sanctions thing and such, it's like, I feel like now we're back in that territory where this is Ryan who presents what it's going to say to the lawyers, then they have to try and put the legal spin on it. I feel like we're back in that territory with it all, because that's when it gets that kind of nasty feel to it, that you've done this and you've victimised us and you didn't do this and it's not fair and I'm going to point out every flaw. And I feel like that's when we get back to it, get back to it being that feeling of, has Ryan composed this? Because it gets to the point where I think surely an attorney wouldn't stand by all of these things. Surely an attorney wouldn't willingly put out these things, knowing that an attorney is allowed to speak out on his behalf in response to requests for comment if necessary. There's guidelines to say that is okay as long as you don't overstep. But basically now Blake is trying to say that all of these things that Freeman has done has tainted the jury pool. She made that request the other day that for a jury trial, now she's saying that the jury pool is tainted because of Bryan Freedman's statements. She's basically does want to get him off the case. She's trying to get it that revoked. His, what do they call it, pro hac feature, where they had that agreement in place that generally he would be proceeding in California, wouldn't he? So he's got this pro hac feature that he can preside or whatever is the right word in this New York based legal case. So I was looking at whether I should kind of go through all of the motions to sanction and all of the omnibus brief. I can't say omnibus now today. I can't say moving and I can't say omnibus. It must be a Yorkshire thing. And I thought, oh, they're really long. Lots of other people are going to do it and really well with good legal insight. So is there any point me going through it all? So I just picked up a few points from other things, but what I might read out to you, which is more fun, is Bryan Freedman's prior statements about Blake Lively, because I had a quick flick through them and I thought, well, I can't see here where he's saying anything that's underhanded, anything that we weren't already thinking anyway based on what we'd been provided with. I can't see where the conspiracy is, or the conspiracy to taint or whatever it is. So there'd been, the other day I went through how Case and Coslow, the ladies related to the agency group, how I felt like they were kind of getting a really hard time through all of this because they'd done all that production for Blake Lively and then they'd kind of been targeted by the Jones Works team to say, now we want you to do all that thing for us because we've got different requests. And it's kind of frustrating really because the judge has come down against Case and Coslow and said, and basically, I think this is when I feel like the law is for assholes who like gamesmanship, because it's like what the judge has said is that basically your argument was they should have come to you knowing that Lively and you were in talks and dealing with this, that they should have come to you. And he's basically said, my feeling is that you could have gone to them, you could have invited them in and blah de blah. So it's like, well, why is that good for one and not good for the other? You know, he's saying not necessarily that the onus was on them to to ask you to collaborate, that you should have asked them to collaborate. But that to me is an argument that could be taken either way. Either one could be at fault. So how can you rule in favour of one? You know, I find that a bit problematic, and that I think it's those kinds of things where you get pissed off when you think these are real people here that are really going through some stuff that, you know, a lot of these people shouldn't even really be involved in all of this. So they've got to produce documents, so that kind of they're being compelled basically to give Stephanie Jones what she wants, which seems to be things from May 1st, 24 to January 1st, 2025. Communications and documents that relate directly to the allegations in the complaint. So, yeah, basically Lively's team are going after Bryan Freedman, saying he's basically broken this New York Rule 3.6. and Federal Rule of Procedure 16F, which is why they are seeking sanctions against him. And they're accusing him of this relentless campaign of media scrutiny or aggro, whatever you want to call it, I guess. But the thing is, relentless. The last, as far as I know, the last thing that came out, according to this, was at the beginning of June. Well, we're at the beginning of August, so that's like at least 2 months that she's had off, basically. And he didn't call Blake a bitch or a narcissist. You know, that came from Megyn Kelly. It didn't come from Bryan Freedman, but that is going to be raised for sure. I think most people kind of are in agreement that when Wayfarer respond to this, they're going to say, our attorney did not say those things, and you are pushing a narrative to this court that is adjusted to suit your own narrative, basically, isn't it? So yeah, there'd been this agreement to extend deadline for motion to compel the documents on or before July 25th, 2025. And then the minute that time was up, they've dropped this massive motion to compel, this omnibus brief on the docket, and it is huge. Meanwhile, it would seem that everybody so far that was the subject of a subpoena that raised a motion to quash, those have all been withdrawn by Blake Lively's team. So that includes, who is it, Lynette Kashishian, who's on YouTube, I'm not sure who that is, Popcorn Planet on YouTube, Pop Diaries on TikTok, and the Swifty Forever account on X. So they'd all submitted motions to quash, and those have been withdrawn by Blake's team. But I guess there's going to be a whole bunch of people out there who either couldn't fathom it to do it themselves and couldn't afford to pay somebody, that are just hoping nothing happens. I think there'll be an awful lot of people out there who are just relying on, hopefully the platform concerned will not release their personal details. So that's kind of scary, isn't it? If there's a lot of people out of that 107 that just was overwhelmed by it, didn't feel like tackling it, so just thought, I'm just going to leave it and see what happens. That's kind of scary, isn't it? I know there's people that's saying that has she somehow been bought a part in The Devil Wears Prada too? And as soon as I saw that, I thought, you can't see a world now where anybody thinks, oh, I would love to hire Blake Lively for that, even if I was paid to do so. Can you imagine the audience sat in the theatre now, even considering that there are still Team Lively people out there who are convinced of her innocence and the rest of it. But can you imagine being sat in a movie theatre and Blake Lively coming on the screen now? You know, for many out there, even if it's like a cameo, it's like you're talking like a throwing your popcorn at the screen type scenario, aren't you? Because she's kind of made herself this caricature villain, this kind of Cruella de Vil type person, and she'll never see that she did that to herself, or it wasn't coming from anybody else. and that this relentless pursuit of Bryan Freedman isn't helping the matter. It's not disproving Wayfarer's point of view, is it? Oh yeah, that's what I was going to say about A Course in Miracles. That's when I got distracted, wasn't it? Because, with me saying like the other day to do with the Garden of Gethsemane and Perez, breaking down just saying Jesus Christ in the middle of trying to read this brief, was that you've got to remember that according to A Course in Miracles, we are all, each of us individually, a wonderful idea that happened in the mind of God. And it's like, what was God thinking on this day? What mushrooms had he been taking? What was he hoping to point out to us when he created Blake Lively? What was the mission? We all supposedly come to this earth with a mission, and for some of us it is to flag up what's wrong in the world and what have you. And it was like, was it Blake Lively's mission to come here and talk about trolls and troll farms and bots and untraceable, unimaginable smear campaigns and the rest of it? It was like, what was going on, God? It was like God was having a little chuckle that day, and then he thought, right, and I'm going to make sure she marries Ryan Reynolds, and then we'll just double down on it all at the same time as well. So that had run through my mind. But yeah, so what I thought I might just run through was just what is more like in a Perez style, just make it a bit lighter rather than dwell in, like I say, everybody's going to break down these filings, this motion for sanctions, and this omnibus brief. So there's only so many times you can hear that. I found it's like, I find this case saps my energy, so I can't handle breaking all of it down in the manner that it should probably be done. I just have too much of an emotional connection to it, I think, in some way, I think. So part of all of these things that Gottlieb has presented to the court, so he's basically taken presented transcripts to the court of everything that Bryan Freedman has ever said to a media outlet about Blake Lively, and it's currently under seal, but there's also some email from Jamie Heath that's in support of this somehow. And there's also a chart of his previous statements today as well that run up to before those links, I guess, or before those transcripts. So we could run through that because that's a bit more fun, I think. So it started on December 21st, 2024. So in a statement to the New York Times, which was later published by various different media outlets, Mr. Freedman stated, "It is shameful that Ms. Lively and her representatives would make such serious and categorically false accusations against Mr. Baldoni, Wayfarer Studios and its representatives, as yet another desperate attempt to fix her negative reputation, which was garnered from her own remarks and actions during the campaign for the film, interviews and press activities that were observed publicly in real time and unedited," which is basically what we're all looking at now with this court case, which allowed for the internet to generate their own views and opinions, which is what is continuing to happen. We're looking at her real-time actions and making up our own minds about it, basically. So these claims, as Bryan continued, are completely false, outrageous, and intentionally salacious with an intent to publicly hurt and rehash a narrative in the media. Wayfarer Studios made the decision to proactively hire a crisis manager prior to the marketing campaign of the film to work alongside their own representative with Jones Works employed by Stephanie Jones due to the multiple demands and threats made by Ms. Lively during production, which included her threatening to not showing up to set, threatening to not promote the film, ultimately leading to its demise during release if her demands were not met. It was also discovered that Ms. Lively enlisted her own representative, Leslie Sloan, with Vision PRs to do exactly the same thing, who also represents Mr. Reynolds to plant negative and completely fabricated and false stories with media, even prior to any marketing had commenced for the film, which was another reason why Wayfarer Studios made the decision to hire a crisis professional to commence internal scenario planning in the case they needed to address. The representatives of Wayfarer Studios still did nothing proactive nor retaliated and only responded to incoming media inquiries to ensure balanced and factual reporting and monitored social activity. What is pointedly missing from the cherry-picked correspondence is the evidence that there were no proactive measures taken with media or otherwise, just internal scenario planning and private correspondence to strategize, which is standard operating procedure with public relations professionals. So that's basically, what is he saying there that's inflammatory, really? That would be kind of twisting the narrative or such. And this is kind of the problem with this omnibus brief and Blake's lack of understanding. And when I say this, I am not saying, it's like I said, I believe the law, the legal profession probably is for assholes that like gamesmanship, that enjoy this chess move type of scenario. I'm not saying that there won't be things that they've been a bit sneaky with, maybe, or something, you know. I'm not saying these are like the angels of the legal profession and all of that. But a big flaw in Blake's argument is the fact that you can't disprove a negative, can you? So it's like she's claiming all these documents she wants and needs and all of this, but if nothing was done, there's nothing to provide her. I don't think she realises that even during all of this horrible, terrible time, allegedly, that they were all going through, the Wayfarer side of things, including Jane Abel and a lot of it, there probably wasn't as much communication as Blake Lively thinks there is. I think she thinks there's more than there is. I think she thinks they were all so obsessed with her, so obsessed with taking her down, that there wasn't a minute in the day that they weren't communicating with her. I think it's that egoic thing, that narcissist thing, that even when it's a negative, it gets turned into like an energy production source, and just the mere thought of all of these people being entirely focused on her, even if it's in a negative way, actually feeds something to a narcissist, that need for energy, that need for drama. And I have a feeling that a lot of this, what she classes as missing information, just simply doesn't exist in the first place. I'm not saying all of it, but I bet there's huge swathes where it's just not there. It's like how the judge has just granted, you know, the motion to quash in parts Freedman's subpoena, because half of it they said, well, we can answer that for you because there's just nothing there. And I think that's the running theme here, that again she will refuse to get, because she's so focused on this thing having been done to her, not it being done to Justin Baldoni, but it having been done to her. So the next thing is this December 23rd, I feel like Blofeld. I just realised, sat here stroking my dog, like as if it could be a cat. So December 23rd, 2024, in a statement released to the Hollywood Reporter and other media outlets, Mr. Freedman stated, TAG PR operated as any other crisis management firm would when hired by a client experiencing threats by two extremely powerful people with unlimited resources. There's nothing untrue there. The standard scenario planning TAG PR drafted proved unnecessary as audiences found Lively's own actions, interviews and marketing during the promotional tour distasteful. and responded organically to that, which the media themselves picked up on. It's ironic that the New York Times, through their effort to uncover an insidious PR effort, played directly into the hands of Lively's own dubious PR tactics by publishing leaked personal text exchanges that lack critical context, the very same tactics she's accusing the firm of implementing. So that was an article titled "Justin Baldoni's Publicist Breaks Silence, Defends Leaked Text About Blake Lively." So it was in the Hollywood Reporter. Then we moved to my birthday, December 28th. In a statement released to Deadline and other media outlets, Mr. Freriedman stated, "I am not going to speak to when or how many lawsuits we are filing, but when we file our first lawsuit, it is going to shock everyone who has been manipulated into believing a demonstrably false narrative." And you can count the likes of Brendan Sklenar in that, can't you? How quick he was to say, read the damn article or whatever it was, pointed that out, didn't he, on whatever social media platform it was. How many people just saw that New York Times article or that CRD and went, yeah, believe that, kind of crazy now in hindsight, but that's what many people did, wasn't it? So it will be supported by real evidence and tell the true story. In over 30 years of practicing, I have never seen this level of unethical behaviour intentionally fueled through media manipulation. And I believe him when he says that. I believe him when he says that in over 30 years of practicing, he's never seen this level of narcissism and people willing to manipulate to that level in order to gain control of a movie, to extort throughout the movie process. I doubt he's come across it. I don't think he's lying there when he says that. So I have never seen this level of unethical behaviour intentionally fueled through media manipulation. It reminds me of what NBC tried to do to Megyn Kelly and Gabrielle Union, and we all know how that ended up. Stand by. And the thing is about all of these news articles that are really salacious, that, she's bandying about in her motions for sanctions and that, is that Freedman gives these quotes or these interviews. He's not responsible for creating those headlines that twist it into a certain other kind of narrative either. He's not in charge of that. So then New Year's Eve 2024, in a statement released to USA Today, hi, I'm back again. That was the postman delivering my something health related, I think. So where were we? So December 31st, 2024. I was talking away to myself for a while, thinking that I'd paused the video and I'd actually stopped it. So that's really frustrating. In a statement released to USA Today and published by various other media outlets, Mr. Freedman stated, in this vicious smear campaign, fully orchestrated by Blake Lively and her team, the New York Times cowered to the wants and whims of two powerful, untouchable Hollywood elites, disregarding journalistic practices and ethics once befitting of the revered publication by using doctored and manipulated texts and intentionally omitting texts which dispute their chosen PR narrative and conveniently wipes emojis as well, those blaming the digitally, that process, that forensic analysis process of taking away relevant bits and bobs such as emojis. In doing so, they predetermined the outcome of their story and aided and abetted their own devastating PR smear campaign designed to revitalise Lively's self-induced floundering public image and counter the organic groundswell of criticism amongst the online public. The irony is rich. Make no mistake, however, as we all unite to take down the New York Times by no longer allowing them to deceive the public, we will continue this campaign of authenticity by also suing those individuals who have abused their power to try and destroy the lives of my clients. While their side embraces partial truths, we embrace the full truth and have all of the communications to back it. The public will decide for themselves, as they did when this first began. And that's basically what is continuing, isn't it? She's not getting the hang of that continuing to look for somebody else to blame, continuing to not look at her own actions and behaviour. She's not getting the fact that this will not change until she changes her strategy. That continuing to blame others, continuing to fault find, continuing to target other people who are trying to do their jobs is not going to enhance her public image. The public are not suddenly, unless she comes out with some like bombshell SH proof of her or somebody that's credible on that set, this is not ever going to go in her favour. She cannot, I think at this point, that is the only thing that would save it, if she had some kind of bombshell SH proof. And there's plenty of people out there saying that when she refers to others on set, that Justin Baldoni and Jamie Heath allegedly did this too. It's like, is she simply talking about her sister Robin Lively? Is that the main others? When she talks about it, we know that potentially Jenny Slate was made uncomfortable because she didn't like the tone of a conversation about motherhood when Jamie Heath was offering her $15,000 to pay off a debt that she didn't want to have. So we know he made her uncomfortable, and we talked about feeling uncomfortable during a work situation, didn't we, the other day, that being uncomfortable at work is often just goes hand in hand with being at work. But yeah, who else is it? Because if they tried to say it's Isabella Ferrer, then we have Isabella Ferrer's text messages that said what a lovely experience she had on set. So who are we talking about when it comes to others? And the thing is, while there's all this noise from like Blake's camp and all these filings and all these motions and all these requests for sanctions, and it highlights like how quiet Team Baldoni is, and Lively tries to say, well, that's because I've provided everything I was asked for. I've been such a good girl. I have nothing to hide. And look, they don't need to file anything. I'm the one that has to file all of these things. But again, it's that thing of she might be asking for things that simply don't exist. And it's like the other side of that is what is going on that we don't know, because Wayfarer have the right to question these others, these so-called others that were SH'd on the set of that film. Because anybody that's willing to come forward and testify on Blake's behalf about SH on that set, surely they get to depose those people and find out the truth of that. Isn't that how it works? That's how I would think it works, and probably, I would imagine so. So January 3rd, during an on-camera interview with NBC Nightly News, Mr. Freriedman stated, among other things, I'm more than willing to take every single text message that exists out there, lay them out, put them on a website for the world to see, have them see the truth and determine the truth for themselves. What's the problem there? He's not doing anything that is not true, that does not exist, that isn't there factually. He's not trying to twist it into something else. On that website, it literally, and we've already addressed the website issue anyway. It's already still out there. There was no suggestion that it would get taken down or anything like that. So January 7th, in a statement released to People and other media outlets, Mr. Freriedman stated, it is painfully ironic that Blake Lively is accusing Justin Baldoni of weaponising the media when her own team orchestrated this vicious attack by sending the New York Times grossly edited documents prior to even filing the complaint. And don't forget, it was kind of the metadata, and that was pointing it all the way back to around October 2024, wasn't it? It wasn't in December. They were colluding, allegedly, all the way back to October. So we are releasing all of the evidence which will show a pattern of bullying and threats to take over the movie. None of this will come as a surprise because, consistent with her past behaviour, Blake Lively used other people to communicate those threats and bully her way to get whatever she wanted. We have all the receipts and more. And that article was titled, Justin Baldoni's lawyer vows to release evidence of Blake Lively's pattern of bullying. We have the receipts. January 7th, during an on-camera appearance on the Megyn Kelly show, Mr. Freriedman made the following statements, among others, which have been excerpted from his full interview. So the first excerpt was, Blake Lively was no victim here. She was in control, she was in power, and she took over this film. How can you dispute that? How can she possibly dispute that? Because there's all that evidence going backwards and forwards over how she manipulated them into the PGA, how she manipulated them into the 17-point agreement. There's manipulation inherent all through it, isn't there? So, so the next excerpt, Ms. Lively used these allegations of SH and she used these allegations of bullying to try and leverage her position so that she could be the de facto director in the case. And then the next excerpt, since I've been involved in this case, I've gotten 50 either texts or emails or, things to my firm's website, more than 50 actually, about this was my experience with Blake Lively. We weren't allowed to talk to her on the set. We weren't allowed to ask for an autograph. We were, instructed, this way or that. We were treated like this. These things aren't coming because we're doing an investigation. These things are completely organic. These are based on people's real life experiences. In fact, we've come across evidence that, shows that even her own representatives knew that she was threatening and mean and tough and wanted to get her way. Even the judge called it hard bargaining, didn't it? When it comes down to it. So then the next excerpt, let's break down what the some people say sexual harassment and some insist on just saying SH. I don't know how strictly YouTube monitors that. It seems ridiculous that you can't say it, but let's break down what the SH is his next snippet. We've just been through the Me Too movement. We've heard all sorts of serious allegations of SH that are really meaningful to victims and really important. And Blake Lively, if she was SH'd to such a degree in this film and in this situation, she wouldn't have returned to the film. Of course she wouldn't. Her husband would have walked onto that set and shut it down, unless they wanted something else out of it. That's something else that some people might want to consider, not me, because I don't think it's true, but say she was SH'd, most men, we've said before, would not act like Ryan Reynolds did, in that case would not do those things. But would he not have walked onto that set and countermanded it and basically said, I'm going to take this over because you've done X, Y, and Z to my wife and I've got the proof of it. But that didn't happen either. So it's interesting, isn't it? If you analyse Ryan's actions in all of this, he comes across very unmanly. I don't know what woman would like her husband, if it was genuine SH, to treat it in the manner that Ryan Reynolds has. It's not what you look for in a man, I don't think. Certainly not what I'd be looking for in a man. So the next excerpt, it's very clear what is being planted. There are evidence for all of these points. There are text messages for all these points. And unlike any case that I've handled in my entire career, it's the one case we're going to put every single text message, every single document, everything on a website for everyone in the public to read, come to their own conclusions, and they can determine whether or not there was sexual harassment here, there was a smear campaign, or there was retaliation, because we have proof and receipts that absolutely and unequivocally show this is not true. And it's kind of that, isn't it, really? There is an awful lot on that website. But she's kind of insisting and determined that there is far much more. But is there? You'll have to let me know your feelings. Do you think Wayfarer are hiding some of these things? Or do you kind of think maybe what I think, that even as horrible as all this was, and how there had to be necessary conversations and there had to be some kind of action plan, that there still wasn't the volume of documents or text exchanges or things that went out on Signal, which seems to be some kind of WhatsApp messaging platform type thing. Was the level to which she thinks there is? And it's like how she still keeps going on about where are the details about the trolls and the bots and the troll farms and the documents to do with that? But it's like, even if that was happening, nobody would be putting it in writing. There wouldn't be documents and long streams of text messages about it. They wouldn't be putting it on Signal. They wouldn't be unless they would have been like meeting in an underground car park, like like Deep Throat or something, wouldn't they? And say, or secret handshakes or something. It wouldn't be in documents or anything like that. So then on January 16th, in a statement released to various media outlets, Mr. Freriedman stated, "This lawsuit is a legal action based on an overwhelming amount of untampered evidence detailing Blake Lively and her team's duplicitous attempt to destroy Justin Baldoni, his team, and their respective companies by disseminating grossly edited, unsubstantiated, new and doctored information to the media. It is clear, based on our own all-out willingness to provide all complete text messages, emails, video footage, and other documentary evidence that was shared between the parties in real time, that this is a battle she will not win and will certainly regret. Blake Lively was either severely misled by her team or intentionally and knowingly misrepresented the truth. Ms. Lively will never again be allowed to continue to exploit actual victims of real harassment solely for her personal reputation gain at the expense of those without power. Let's not forget Ms. Lively and her team attempted to bulldoze reputations and livelihoods for heinously selfish reasons through their own dangerous manipulation of the media before even taking any actual legal action. We know the truth, and now the public does too. Justin and his team have nothing to hide. Documents do not lie." So the next one was January 18th. In a statement released to Deadline and later published by other media outlets, Mr. Freedman stated, "After my clients filed a comprehensive lawsuit packed with almost 200 pages of undeniable facts and documentary evidence which crushed their false allegations of a smear campaign by providing doctored communications to the New York Times, Blake and her legal team have just one heinous pivot left, and that is to double down on the revoltingly false sexual allegations against Mr. Baldoni. The mere fact that Ms. Lively feels that she can publicly destroy Mr. Baldoni's reputation in an attempt to devastate his future career and then deny him or his team their own ability to defend themselves against her is preposterous." And that's what she's continuing to do. She wants to take away his main attorney, basically, and not allow him to practice in this lawsuit, wants to sanction him. She's never got past those early things, Freedman says, and it all harks back. It's like when I do my work, my hypnotherapy work, and we go back to scenes in the past that are the root cause of people's issues. And it's like I say, it's often something that happened between 0 and 7, these funny little things that happened that you didn't understand at that age. How you dealt with that and the things you made up about yourself in your mind, the imprints on you, is often how you'll deal with later traumas. And it's not the later traumas so much, it's the early things. And that's kind of what what's harking back to here, that all of this stems really from very simple facts, such as Blake can't handle people speaking negatively about her. It's a very simple belief, it's a very simple imprint. This idea that you can't possibly see me that way because that is not what I put out to you to be seen. It's like how you're not supposed to notice that she's pregnant. I have not put that out there for you to acknowledge. You're not allowed to notice my 8 or 9 months pregnant belly because I have not allowed that information out there, even though it's sat on my lap, basically, for you to comment on. So it's like you don't get to see anything other than this deeply curated image of me. And that's kind of the problem, is that the deeply curated image at this point was what Maximum Effort told her to go for as appropriate for this TV movie. So the carefully curated image was exactly what got her into trouble this time. And you're not allowed to not like her for that, because that is all she is, this carefully curated public image. So the next excerpt of this. Mr. Baldoni never once publicly attempted to call Ms. Lively out for her own many wrongdoings during filming. He kindly addressed all her concerns during filming in the correct manner, despite the fact that he wholly disagreed. He himself was committed to do things differently and to keep the peace, as she specifically admitted to in her own lawsuit. We will not only continue to defend our clients against Blake's power, privilege and all-out lies, but we will now fight even harder for the voiceless in the DV community who are unfairly suffering while she continues to push on her own self-serving and selfish vendetta in the media. So January 21st, Mr. Freriedman released video footage from the production of the film to Us Weekly and other media outlets. The footage begins with the following statement. Ms. Lively's complaint alleges that during a scene, Mr. Baldoni and Ms. Lively were filming for a slow dance montage. Mr. Baldoni was behaving inappropriately. The following videos captured on May 23rd, 2023. And as Kirsty Flaw pointed out, there were text messages between Baldoni and Blake on that day, which were very nice, were backwards and forwards, you were great, blah, no, you were great, basically, blah, 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 on the day supposedly SH had happened. So, the following videos captured on May 23rd clearly refute Ms. Lively's characterisation of his behaviour. The scene in question was designed to show the two characters falling in love and longing to be close to one another. Both actors are clearly behaving well within the scope of the scene and with mutual respect and professionalism. And as I keep banging on about, the whole problem with that scene was brought on by Blake herself, because he didn't want talking in that scene. There wasn't supposed to be any talking. There wasn't supposed to be any audio. She insisted on there being audio. And my theory on that is this business of her being emotionally stunted in my eyes, because he just wanted to be able to just gaze into her eyes. He wanted them to be doing that, basically, like, because he likened it to what he would do with his wife, didn't he? Because he was forced to speak, he said, well, me and my wife can spend 5 minutes gazing into each other's eyes and we just know automatically what each other is thinking and feeling, basically. And she's like, oh no, Ryan and I, there's just never enough time in the day to talk. We talk. And we've witnessed how Blake communicates. You know, and it's like, well, I found that dance montage scene kind of sad, that, because I think you see a little bit in Blake, in the body language, this idea of, oh, is something wrong with my relationship in that we don't do that we can't be quiet, that there isn't this silent understanding. And I think part of Blake's problem that day was, and like, I think it's been through other things, this idea of questioning what she thinks is intimacy, what she thinks is a healthy relationship. And I think that was a big stumbling block with her and Justin, his emotional depth and her lack of it. And I think that was a lot of why they didn't get on. I think she found him very appealing in some ways, but it also flagged up a lot of issues to her and a lot of gaps, which I think was part and parcel of why this has got as big as it has, really. So the next one, January 21st, in a statement released to Us Weekly alongside the above referenced video footage, Mr. Freedman and or his team stated, Us received this video from legal counsel Bryan Freedman, who has gone on record numerous times and told the public that Justin Baldoni and team has nothing to hide, and this video once more proves this. Justin and team have the right to defend themselves with the truth, and this is what we will be continuing to show with the upcoming website containing all correspondence as well as relevant videos that directly quash her claims. Right. So that's kind of the last one. That's the last one in what they called like their pre-chart or something like that, the chart of prior statements or something. So then on top of that, they've submitted a whole string of other articles. And like I say, I think the last one was the Megyn Kelly one in early June. So this relentless campaign that kind of nothing has been done in a couple of months. And somebody else said it today. I think it was not actually Golden, over this business of Bryan Freedman commenting. And I feel the same way as her, and I've said it to you before. I know I'm commenting on this, but I'm actually not actually consuming a lot of people's content. And it's like I've said before, I'm not really watching Leanne Newton, I'm not watching Cassidy, just because their streams tend to be really big and long, and I haven't got the bandwidth for that in my head. Not to say that it's not relevant or good or any of that. I prefer like it in shorter, but so I like Popcorn Planet. I flip through Dave Neal and just go to the bits where he's talking about Baldoni. I'll occasionally consume, not actually Golden, because I think she's really good. I do watch Without a Crystal Ball because I don't know, I just find it easy to watch, and I think it's because the images are scrolling and it's not too heavy. But you know what I mean? I'm not looking at the big media that's out there. I haven't touched Candice for a while. I was watching Candice for a bit when she was talking about Baldoni. I think she's so focused on Macron now that's not happening. I don't know. But you know what I mean? I'm not consuming anything and everything to do with this. I haven't watched all of Bryan Freedman's statements to media, all of the interviews. I'm not going out looking for it all the time. What I know is what I've gone to the docket and looked at, and the people that I am following are also people that are looking at the docket and saying what's on there. So it's like we're not getting it from these, what she wants to think of as heavily curated sources. If I come across a video on YouTube, most people, if it looks like a really AI generated image, like it's photos of them that have been tweaked and edited, I don't touch them. If I open something up and it sounds like a recorded voice, like not a real voice, I don't bother with it. So you know what I mean? I'm being really careful about what I take on board as relevant to this case. And I think that's what Blake is not getting. What she's refusing to get is that the majority of people out there are not consuming a lot of nonsense about this case. They're looking at the actual factual stuff that is on the docket, and they're making their minds up for it themselves, and they're going off and Googling legal terms and watching people like Not Actually Golden and actually learning a bit about the law, and starting to use words like propounding in the daily vocabulary and things like that. So I wanted to bring that to you today because, like I said, there'll be plenty of people out there bringing you the slightly more depressing stuff about omnibus briefs and all of this being unfair and all of this being, you know, so against poor Blake Lively, and her being a victim of what she's alluding to now, of physical and mental abuse that she's suffered because of this. And there'll be plenty of people talking about the motions to sanctions. So I wanted to be a little bit lighter and just recap some of the things that Freedman has said. And I don't find it that inflammatory. I don't know about you. I find it quite factual. In a way, if you think about it, if you'd seen everything that Justin has, and you'd talked to him, and you've probably seen him in tears, and you've seen the effect on his family, and you've seen how he took himself out of the country in order to just get out of it and stuff like that. I think you would, if you were Bryan Freedman, you'd consider yourself that you'd actually been quite subdued and quite professional and quite being careful. I know, like, you know, some people find him too much. I don't know. Like I said, I do believe that the legal profession is probably for assholes who enjoy this kind of gamesmanship. It wouldn't do for me. I couldn't hack the unfairness of it. I couldn't hack listening to unfairness every day, because even doing this sometimes, I enjoy it more for the connection with you and for the interplay that we have and the little conversations we've had backwards and forwards, and feeling like how nice it is that people have been so kind as to say they just enjoy listening to my voice or the way I laugh or something like that. I get something from that more than I do talking about the unfairness of it all and the injustice of it, that because that weighs heavy on my heart, and that it's easy for me to let that get to me. So I actually am doing this at this point because I enjoy talking to you. I enjoy that you enjoy that I have something to bring to it in some weird way. So today I wanted to just recap some of what Bryan has said that has been so problematic to Blake Lively, and just so you have that feeling of reassurance that somebody is on the case for Justin and team, that somebody's going to stand up for him, in terms of Bryan Freedman, I mean, and that, the truth is still underlying all of this. And Blake can make as much noise as she likes. She can have court listeners send me 8 emails on an evening about all of this, which is what kind of happened last night or in the early hours. She can do all of that and it won't change a thing. It won't help her reputation. It won't solve the problem that she's created. You don't just continue going down the line that is not working and expect it to change. It's the very definition of madness, isn't it? To do the same thing over and over and over again and expect a different outcome. And it's what we're seeing in real time, basically. So I'm looking forward now to a nice letter from Kevin Fritz or somebody over there that's going to make everybody feel better about all of this. All right, so please do hit that like and subscribe and share if you're enjoying this, and drop me a comment, because I'm very aware that many of you out there are far more up on this than I am, and that you've got really valid points, and I'm happy to take on board anything that you spotted that I haven't, for sure. All right, so I will see you later. Bye bye.